you've heard that he's coming to your area. And rumors have been spreading and things have been being shared that this guy is an amazing teacher. But not just an amazing teacher, they're saying he's performed miracles and that he could be the one and only prophesied Son of God. This man by the name of Jesus. And everyone's talking about him. And now you're going to have an opportunity to potentially see him because you hear he's going to be coming right through your town. So you figure, okay, I got to at least check this guy out. I got to see what all the hype is about. I got to see, maybe get a glimpse of him. And so you decide to head down to town to where he's going to be going right through. But as you get closer, you can't believe all the people that have lined the streets to see him. So you think about turning back, but then you think, well, no, I want to at least have a chance to check out who this guy by the name of Jesus is, what he looks like. Maybe he'll stop and maybe he'll preach a message and I'll get a chance to hear for myself and make my own judgment, determination as to who this guy is. And so you decide to press on and kind of go amongst the crowds, and you get to a place where you'll be able to see him very easily and no one in front of you. And then you can see from a distance and you're hearing from the people that he and his disciples are getting closer. They're coming and the crowd's getting a little louder and getting a little bit more energetic, anxious to see who this guy is. And then he gets closer and he gets closer and now you start to see him and you're trying to figure out which one he is out of the group that's kind of walking there, but you can kind of see everybody pointing and you're like, okay, I think that's the one that they call Jesus. And then he gets closer and he gets closer and you're like, okay, well, he's nothing special. I mean, he's dressed like everybody else. He's not riding on any type of throne, or he's not being depicted as some sort of king. He just kind of looks like everybody else, wearing what everybody else wears, and kind of walking along. And then he gets really close to you, and then he kind of walks right on by you, and you think, okay, I guess that's kind of it. I guess I can at least say I saw him. But then all of a sudden he stops. And kind of everyone's thinking, oh, maybe he's going to say something. And so kind of the crowd kind of gets a little quieter. And then he turns. And then he looks your direction. And you're kind of looking around to think, okay, who's he looking for? Or who's he looking at? But then he kind of seems to be looking at you. And he gets closer. And then he starts walking towards you. And you're starting to get a little bit uncomfortable, like, okay, who's he looking at? But it's clear he's looking at you. And then he comes walking right up, and of course everybody's getting very silent and quiet, and it's getting awkward, and he comes walking right directly to you, and then he looks at you. And you're wondering, what? And then he just simply says, come, follow me. What would you do? Friends, I've been a senior pastor at 2 different churches for combined over 15 years and had a chance to preach a lot of messages. And prior to that, too, I was a person that was immersed in learning about leadership. I would go to leadership conferences. I mean, you wouldn't want to know the number of leadership conferences I went to. I soaked up leadership books. Probably the biggest part of my personal library was leadership books. 21 Laws of Leadership, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. Just the list goes on and on. I just found myself just really wanting to learn more about how to be a Christian leader for God and to serve His church well. But yet during that time, and even when I was 7 years as a senior pastor out in California, and then when I stepped down from that to become the full-time director of Faith at Home Ministries, there was something that I started to maybe come to realize. Hate to say that, but and that was simply this: there was nowhere in the Bible where Jesus says, "Go and lead." He says, "Come, follow me." And so that put me on a little bit of a personal journey, like, wait a second, have I been making this about the wrong thing? What is Christianity about? Is it about leadership, or is it about followership? And that's a word, followership. Not even sure it's a word. I mean, I know it is, but you sit there and go, it's not one we use very often. And it's certainly not something we get super excited about, right? And you sit there and go, but wait a second, there's all these books on leadership. And yet there was what's out there on followership. So I just thought, okay, well, then maybe I just need now study followership. So I'll start looking for books on followership. Just like there's 21 laws of leadership, there's probably got to be laws of followership. As there's habits of highly effective leaders, there's probably got to be habits of highly effective followers. And so I did a little bit of a search and a journey on followership. And here's one of the things I discovered. From 1928 until 2006, that's when I was doing this journey, only 530 things had ever been written on followership. And from 1928 until 2006, only 530 things. And most of those were in the field of management, and I had nothing to do with religion. And so I did another search and discovered that there were at least 30 books written on followership since 2010, which gave me the impression that maybe followership was catching on. But then as I looked a little further at those 30 books, 80% of those 30 books were focused on how to be a good follower at work, essentially how to be a good employee, regardless of kind of who your boss is. And it had absolutely nothing to do with biblical followership. And then the few books that remained that were about biblical followership had few or hardly any reviews, which meant not many people have read them. And then I even tried to purchase 2 of them, and they were no longer available. And so where that kind of led me was there's just not a lot out there on followership. A lot out there on leadership. And I mean, a lot of good stuff written on leadership. But could it be that maybe, I mean, you even look at how Satan likes to work and to get us just a little bit off track and distracted. Could it be that we are too focused on leadership and that we're not focused on the one thing that we should be focused on, which is followership? I remember when I even tried to, this was 10, 15 years ago, I thought, you know what, I'm going to submit this as an idea to my publisher for a book. And I got this response from my publisher, and I'm not going to read it to you verbatim, but essentially it was this: Mark, you have a great thesis here on followership that comes straight from the Bible itself. It's very clear, but we just need you to know there's a reason that we're going to be rejecting this idea, and it's simply this: it's that followership, or it was that leadership sells and followership doesn't. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I was glad that they were so honest with me, but wouldn't that just be the way, right? Leadership sells, followership doesn't. So I'm going to invite you to join me for a journey that is going to explore, it goes all the way back to the question, come follow me. And I'd like to just take a journey looking at, and we're going to look into some, just like there was the book on laws of leadership, I identified some laws of followership. What's a law versus a habit? A law is, kind of like the law of gravity. Law just exists, right? It is what it is. You can't change it. It's what the law is. So we're going to look at some laws of followership, but then there are some habits that can help us with those laws of followership. And so we're going to explore that. And we're going to take a slow journey. And the way this is going to work is I really want this to be less of, I'm doing this in a format that has nothing to be, hopefully nothing like doing a sermon on Sunday morning. This is much more about having a conversation with others, so that these are going to be short, little, and then there's going to be times for you to then ponder, discuss, process with somebody else some things before you look at the next one, before you take the next step in the journey as we kind of go through this together. So thank you for giving me your most precious commodity, which is your time. And so what I'd like you to start with right now is thinking through, where are you at when it comes to leadership versus followership? And what do you do with this? Are you more excited about, do you get more excited about learning about leadership? Do you get more excited and kind of, do you have more interest in leadership and how to be a better leader, whether that be a leader at work, whether that be a leader at home, whether that be a leader in whatever the context or environment is? And when you hear the word followership, how does that ring to you? Is that something that interests you at all? Like, have you ever thought about what it means to be a follower? And could it just be, I want you to process this, is that, could it be that we are being called, even when we are put in positions of leadership, we are called to remain followers first? Is that, and one of the things I've learned is when I try to step out and start leading where I think things should go, versus if I wait and just stay a follower and continue to follow where Jesus is calling me to go, how do things turn out? Which is one of the things we're going to be discussing. So think about it. As you look back over your life, when you were following versus when you were trying to lead, how did that play out for you? And so that's our beginning point. Process it, discuss it, think about it. And then next, we're going to take the next step, which is to take a look at the very first law of followership. So I look forward to taking this journey with you. God bless you guys.